Welcome to the ParadoxWalk podcast, specializing in paranormal activity, UFOs, and bizarre, out-of-the-ordinary, glitch-in-the-matrix type activities and things like that, dream realities, and many other subjects such as that. This first episode is actually mostly about mind reading, but also goes into people witnessing other people's dreams while they're awake. We actually have 2 of those cases today, and a woman who believes she heard words forming from her dog's barking. The first story here was at a festival that somebody wrote about, so I'm going to read it pretty much verbatim here, word for word. While at a festival, a man walked up to me and stared me dead in the eyes. His irises were so dark that it was impossible for me to distinguish his pupils. He spoke. "What was that? Do you see it?" I suddenly saw a bright array of colors surrounding him, much like what I'd think to be an aura. "Can you hear it?" The aura faded away, and I heard a bunch of high-pitched harmonic hums, resembling an ensemble of singing bowls. "Perhaps you can smell it." The sound was no longer present, but I smelled an indescribable fragrance. It's a little bit of a stretch to say it resembled lavender, or can you taste it? I experienced a taste in my mouth similar to that of a cough drop. My mind was blown. From what I experienced, this man was playing with my senses, simply by looking at me and speaking. It was as if he had special consciousness-related powers. I asked his name, and he said, "I have no name." He walked away, and I never saw him again. To me, that just shows how thin of like a little thread that our 5 senses hang on. That something that simple can happen and just somebody reminds me of some kind of artist just playing with someone else's mind like that. What does that mean? Sometimes I've heard ideas from some of these books and stuff like that the brain is more like a radio than it is whereas if you just look at a radio, it by itself is just dead. If it's not plugged in, it's dead, and it doesn't do anything by itself. That's kind of like how a human brain is. Like if it doesn't have any energy going through it, isn't it just dead? Other than that, a radio can be kind of turned to different dials and pick up different things. When we have 5 senses like that, maybe some of them can be manipulated like that in the same way like a radio can pick up a frequency if it's tuned the right way. And another story I have is my own. I worked at a retail shop a long time ago. This was around the year 2000, actually. One day we got, a bunch of us had to do this week of inventory where we had to do all these intricate inventory things super early in the morning, before sunrise. And I actually lived a city away and had to commute to this job. The morning, I woke up, it was 3 in the morning or something like that. And to my horror, I realized I didn't even have any coffee. And my whole morning was a big mess, and I got there just as the sun was coming up. And this lady, let's just call her Janice, she was in a bad mood too, and neither of us were really happy about being there. And I asked her because when the sun started to kind of come up, I noticed there was a cafe nearby that opened, and they had coffee. And I had really thought she was going to let me go over there. I'm like, "Hey, can I go get this coffee?" And this actually is part of the story. So she said no, and I kind of gave it 15, 20 minutes, and then I kind of went up to her again, and I was like, "Hey, Janice, I'll buy you a cup of coffee if you let me go." She kind of said something along the lines of "Oh, we got to get all this stuff done real fast, and we don't have time to be messing around with coffee and stuff." And obviously this lady had no idea what it's like for people that drink coffee every day to not have coffee and get there super early and start doing intricate work with numbers and little tags and things like that. I was like, I just went up to her and I just said, "Hey, I'll buy you anything you want. I'll just run over there and run right back, and both of us will have coffee, and I'll get you some food or something." I was getting kind of desperate, And she snapped. This lady just was like, "Wow, we have to get all this done right away. No, you can't have coffee. Don't ask me again. Get over there, do your thing. Don't ask me about coffee again today." Just basically just go over there and shut up and leave me alone. That was her attitude, and it was a really negative attitude. I was irritated, go back to my spot, and my mind was just what is wrong with this lady? Why is she being such a bitch? And she shouldn't talk to me like that. And won't hurt any, and this is like my inner dialogue, right? It won't hurt anything to go walk over there and come back in 2 minutes. I could have done that really, really fast. And then I had this thought, Janice is the devil. And from across the room, this lady slams down her hanger, turns around and glares at me. And I felt like saying the words like, I just thought that. Like she was staring at me like she heard me think, Janice is the devil. When I thought that, she heard that. And I think for a second she thought I said it. Because she just turned around and glared at me. And I stopped what I was doing because she didn't just turn around. She like turned around and like did something. Like something hit something. Or I think she slammed something down. And she stares at me, and it was dead silent in there. The most awkward silence of my life was her staring at me, and I wanted to say, I thought that. I didn't know if that would make it worse or better, because slowly, like in a horror movie, she slowly turned back and started doing what she was doing, and I realized, like, for sure, she heard that thought. Needless to say, that was like the weirdest place to work after that. And I was actually like third key manager. It was just awkward. Like we had to like keep working together and stuff like that. And like she never apologized or anything. And I don't know if she thought yeah, it was people that drink coffee need their coffee, man. I mean, if they really need it, you should let them go have it. I mean, people let people go smoke all the time. What's the diff? Anyway, I'm still mad about that, but she did read my mind, and that was creepy. I got to tell what she looks like. She looked like if a Nordic alien had a baby with a Sasquatch. So her face looked like a Sasquatch, but a little bit like a person. Like she was about close to 7 feet tall. She was a very tall blonde, but not like a beautiful Nordic blonde. It was like literally like if a Nordic alien had a baby with the Sasquatch. But wasn't hairy. Like, what do you think that would come out as? It would come out as this lady. She was even like older back then. So, but I think that might have something to do with it because they say these like Nordic alien things like can do that kind of stuff, and she could. I don't know if she read my mind on purpose or if it was an accident, but I don't know. It doesn't make it an alien if somebody reads each other's mind. Like, who hasn't had, like, an experience like that? Like women's intuition or something like that. But with that tall blonde thing, it made me a little bit suspicious that she was something. I don't know what to say about that. The next story here will be, there was a guy that was driving to his college. His friend and him went to the same college. And he was driving up, and he saw his friend walking kind of with his head down, and he was walking up kind of on campus, right? So the man telling the story was driving along campus, and he started honking his horn at his friend, like, hey, you saw him walking and figured he'd say hi. So he slowly pulled up and was honking his horn at the guy. And the guy just put his head down and kind of looked in his direction, just put his head down and kept walking. He thought this was weird, and then I guess he kind of kept driving and then looked again for his friend, and his friend was gone. He couldn't find him. Later on, he called him and was like, hey, man, well, why did you, I was honking my car horn at you. Why didn't you turn around and look at me? And I guess his friend said, I didn't go to school today. And he's like, I was honking my horn and I drove up to you. And he goes, I got to tell you, I slept during the day today. And around that time, I was asleep in my bed. But I was dreaming that I was walking at the college and a car was behind me honking its horn over and over at me. And when I turned around, I didn't recognize you or the car in my dream, I just didn't know who was doing that over and over to me, and I just kind of sped up and walked away. So maybe sometimes when we dream, like we actually go out and do stuff. Some people, a lot of people have had these stories like this, they were dreaming something or dreamt that they went to a party, and then people have said that they've taken pictures with them and stuff, and they interacted with people. And I'll try to hunt down these stories in later podcasts. A similar story to that is you can find this on the Beyond Creepy channel, where two hunters got kind of caught in the woods and found some old dilapidated house. It was a broke down house, and they went in it. One guy was sleeping on the floor, and the man in the bed started hearing his friend almost choking. When the man in the bed got out of bed and walked over to his friend on the ground, he witnessed like a terrible, ugly lady sitting on him, choking him to death. And so he took his gun, what's it called, the stock of the gun, like the butt of the gun, smashed it over the lady's head. But it